On February 4th of 2021, the Nevada County Sheriff's Office received calls from the residents of Alta Sierra, California, about a woman who was walking down the street with her 2 kids. She had been knocking on random doors asking for a ride to the California state lines. The woman claimed she was being followed by someone, and she was right. That woman's name was Sage Crawford, and less than an hour later, Sage would lose her life in an unexpected and awful tragedy. I'm Mr. Black, and this is the disturbing truth. Originally from the state of New Mexico, Sage Crawford had moved to Cali's Nevada County sometime around 2019. According to some sources, she relocated to the region after her husband Isaiah Crawford passed away in a tragic motorcycle accident on May 28th of 2017. Isaiah was just 32 years old when his life was cut short unexpectedly. He left behind a young daughter, his wife Sage, and loving relatives, all who were devastated by the loss of their dear loved one. But what makes his passing even more tragic is that Isaiah's widow Sage was left to be a single mother, not just to their daughter, but also to the one that was still in her womb. Sage Crawford was sadly pregnant when Isaiah died. According to some, after his death, she changed her name from Deirdre Eloise Hawkins Crawford to Ariella Sage Eloise Crawford. The reason for this remains unknown to the public as far as I can tell. On the evening of Wednesday, February 3rd, Sage contacted some people and claimed she was being harassed by law enforcement. She also expressed concern for the safety of her 2 daughters, aged 4 and 6. This was said to stem from a possible incident that occurred at a nearby shelter, but I couldn't find any reports to support or refute this claim. People who had contact with Sage in the days leading up to her death described her as afraid but not erratic. The Nevada County Sheriff's Office responded to the aforementioned calls regarding Sage Crawford and arrived at the Alta Sierra neighborhood on Thursday, February 4th, 2021 at around 1 p.m. A report from a concerned resident indicated that a young woman, who seemed to be acting rather odd, possibly under the influence of something, was walking on the side of the road with 2 young children. A short moment later, another call was received by a different resident from the same area. This person claimed to have interacted with the woman. That woman was obviously Sage Crawford, and the 2 little kids were her own daughters. The caller explained to the 911 dispatcher that she was worried about Sage and her children. Sage wanted a ride to the county line. She also claimed someone was following her. And as I already stated, Sage was right. Someone was following her. The caller even explained to the dispatcher that Sage was telling the truth and described the vehicle that was tailing the scared mother and her little girls. But the dispatcher quickly explained to the caller that the car following Sage was simply the other concerned citizen that had first called 911 to report the mother's odd behavior. Deputy Sheriff Caleb Tudorine, Deputy Matthew Harrison, and Deputy Micah Arbaugh all arrived at Miss Crawford's location at around 1:22 p.m. As soon as they exited their vehicles, they informed Sage that herself and her children were not in any danger or trouble. Not knowing any information other than what they'd been told by the dispatcher, there's no way the officers on the scene were ready for the events that were about to transpire that day. What you're about to see is police footage from the day in question. I must warn you, it's extremely hard to watch. Viewer discretion is advised.
You're not in trouble or anything like that. I'm not going to touch your babies, but I need you to put your knife away.
Don't
County 1 Puppy, we're going to have one at gunpoint. She has a knife.
Don't
I'm not going to hurt your babies. Hey, I'm not going to hurt your babies. I'm not going to.
Everyone knows every single face, every single name. If
Hey.
something happens to me and my babies,
Okay.
everyone in the whole world.
Hey, listen.
No!
We're not. Hold on. I got Dave. Hold on. Hey,
Touch my babies.
we're not talking. County 1 Puppy,
Face.
send us
Everyone
this.
knows what you're going to do. You can't sit there and say that I'm
Okay.
crazy.
I'm not saying anything. I just want to help you out.
They know who you are.
I just want to help out.
Everyone knows who you are. You can't hide
Okay.
from God.
Okay.
Allah Akbar.
Hold
back
up.
up, Zoe.
Zoe, you want to back up?
Don't
Zoe,
you
put the knife down. Zoe, don't.
Don't you f***ing my babies.
We're not. Zoe, you want to back up? Zoe, put the knife down.
No.
Put the knife down.
No.
Hey, I need you to put that
I
knife
don't
down.
give a
Talk. Just talk to
No,
us.
I don't have anything to say. Everyone
Talk to
knows
us.
who you are.
Talk to us.
Everyone knows who you are.
Listen.
There's lawyers who
Talk
stand
to
up.
us.
There's lawyers who have been
Talk
waiting.
to us.
They have all that
Hold on.
evidence. So kill me
I
now.
don't want to kill you.
Because they
Give me
will
a sec.
find out the truth.
Don't.
Don't you
Hey. County 1 450, shots fired, shots fired. Let go of the knife! Put the knife down.
Don't be scared!
Hey, don't back. Hey, back up, back up. Take a breather. Hey! You're grabbing. You taser gun. I tased. It was ineffective. She charged me.
Everyone knows your face.
So did you shoot or not?
She shot.
He shot?
I did not shoot.
Don't you lie. All I know.
Put the knife down.
All I know is.
Put the knife down.
All I know is the truth. All I know is the truth.
Put the knife down.
You're scared. They're not scared.
You good, bro?
I'm good.
All I know is the truth.
Man.
All I know
Drop
is
the
the
knife,
truth.
ma'am. Hey,
All I
look
know
at
is
me.
the truth.
Look at me.
Come on, we want to get you medical help. We need you to drop the knife.
Hey, are you still connected on the taser?
My taser's down there. It didn't take.
Okay.
She charged me as soon as it went off.
Okay, get your medical bag ready. Okay.
After the tragic incident, a badly wounded Sage Crawford was taken to the hospital, where sadly, she would pass away due to her injuries. The two little girls now reside with their extended biological family, and the officer that pulled the trigger was put on administrative leave. It's unclear how long the leave was in effect for, but on July 17th of 2022, the district attorney's office released an official statement saying that all of the officers involved in the tragedy were found on the right side of the law in relation to the shooting of Sage Crawford. There were no charges filed against them. After the dashcam footage was released, the public reaction was split in two sides. One side screamed police brutality and mental health awareness as questions arose in regards to how police should respond when it comes to these kinds of calls. The other side praised police for doing what they had to do in order to protect themselves in a situation where someone with a deadly weapon seemed hell-bent on harming someone with it. But no matter what side you stand on here, one thing should be clear to everyone. There were no winners present the day that Sage Crawford was gunned down in front of her kids as she seemingly tried to stab a police officer. It's a harsh and cold reality, but from where I'm sitting, that is the truth of what happened. Local activist Leah Shank, founder of Impact, a nonprofit social justice-led activist group, was interviewed by the Union newspaper in regard to the tragedy. She demanded justice for Sage Crawford and her family as she classified the event as a case of police brutality. Shank demanded to know why lethal force was used to stop Miss Crawford. While I deeply feel for all sides in this needless tragedy that indeed seems to involve someone in the middle of a psychotic episode of some kind, I saw the video in full for myself, over and over, and I'm left with little doubt. This appears to be a clear-cut case of self-defense. The officers, from the start of their engagement with Sage, genuinely appear to be trying to help her. It's not like they rushed at her with guns drawn. Even the tone of their voice was concerned, not aggressive, as they told her she wasn't in any trouble. But Sage was immediately aggressive, violent, and unresponsive to cops pleading for her to put the weapon down. She was belligerent, by its very definition. But as soon as the officer spoke, she unsheathed her knife. She also claimed to know what they did to her babies, stating that everyone knows, every single person, every single name. Don't hurt my babies. Everyone knows your faces. But what did she mean by that? Now it's easy to get pulled into wondering if her claims hold any weight. Were her kids being hurt or trafficked? Were the authorities already a danger to her and her children? Well, I would assume if Crawford's claims held any merit, then her kids would have been scared of the cops. But in the video, they don't appear to be. At one point, one of the little girls even attempts to defuse the situation by standing in between her mother and the authorities before yelling stop. But Sage didn't stop. And while she waved that knife around carelessly in all directions while her children were running back and forth, further dilutes the idea of coherent concerns for their protection. I say coherent concerns because I do believe Sage was actually in fear for the lives of her and her children. I just don't believe her reason is rooted in the realm of logic. At one point, Crawford even goes as far as to dangerously grab one of the children with the same hand the knife is in. If you ask me, that's not rational thinking. I mean, it's clear to me that Sage didn't have any malicious intent outside of self-defense for her and her family. But the problem is that it doesn't appear that there was any genuine need for her to defend herself. She goes on to scream Allahu Akbar several times, which again, doesn't seem to make any sense given the circumstances. Sage was obviously suffering from some kind of mental condition, no doubt about it. And it seems to me, in my opinion, that her intent was not to offend, but defend. Unfortunately for Sage, and more importantly her children, officers have a right to defend themselves. As stated previously, they informed her that she was not in any trouble and told her several times to put the knife down and talk to them. They even made several attempts to put space between themselves and her, and when she screamed, "Kill me now," it's hard to deny that Sage Crawford was the aggressor in this situation. And she continued to escalate to the point of charging at an officer shouting, "I'll effing kill you," while brandishing a dangerous weapon. And when the cop's taser failed to stop her, it seems to me like the police were left with no choice but to shoot. Therefore, it's my belief that Sage's actions, regardless of where they stemmed from, caused the tragedy that day. It was like either she was going to die or a cop was going to be badly injured. Even as she lay wounded on the ground, she continued to clutch the knife and act irrationally, shouting, "Don't be scared to die," and "Allahu Akbar," among other things. It's sad that officers were put in a position where they were forced to do that to a mother in front of her small children. It's sad that Sage was in a state of mind that caused her to needlessly attack police officers that were, by all accounts, there to check on the welfare of her and her children. It's not like they arrived on the scene that day hoping to gun down a mom. There were no winners that day. Of course, this likely all stems from a psychotic break of some kind, but it's not police brutality. The cops made every attempt to de-escalate and use non-lethal force. It simply didn't work. You can see it for yourself in the video. Sage acted quickly, no doubt falsely thinking she was protecting her family, but that does not negate self-defense. Not in my book. There were no winners that day, but the ones who lost the most, they lost 2 parents in the space of a couple years. And those cops also have to live with the fact that they had to take her life in front of those kids. They'll never be the same either. They'll never stop hearing those screams in their sleep. None of the people involved were pleased with the result. The only one who doesn't have to live with this tragedy is the aggressor, Sage Crawford, who likely due to mental health reasons, got herself gunned down in front of her kids while seemingly trying to take the life of a police officer. How would you feel about Sage if she killed that cop in front of her kids, survived, and was arrested? Would she be a monster then, or just a mental health victim? It's a fair question. We have to look at all the angles when we aim our finger guns at someone and shoot the blame. There absolutely were no winners the day Sage Crawford was killed. In the wake of a more prominent mental health crisis caused by our everyday lives where we're subject to the loss of family members, stress, substance abuse, and many other factors, one thing rings clear. People can break. Sage Crawford was not evil, but she was seemingly in an altered state of mind that made her think others around her were. So what would have happened if cops hadn't arrived? What if she knocked on a door and she thought the person that answered was evil? What would she do then? I question the safety of others if Sage Crawford hadn't been stopped. I wish she had been stopped without the use of lethal force, of course, but she ran through the taser. Even so, I'm not without compassion for Sage. As I said before, she wasn't evil or a monster, but this video would be very different if she had killed someone that day. That fact shouldn't be overlooked when you contemplate how you should feel about this situation. Some people seek professional help for their mental health. Some deal with it themselves or with the help of someone close to them. Others bottle it up and hope everything will be just fine. But then one day, life becomes too much and all that has been bottled gets shaken to the point that everything inside erupts. Sage is not the first person to have gone through the dark side of their own mind and not made it out alive. On July 1st of 2019, Officer Charles Bidinger and Officer David Harrison were called to the River Club apartment complex near Macon Highway in Athens, Clark County, Georgia. The police department had received multiple calls about a young man covered in blood who had been acting erratically with a knife in his hand, possibly hurting himself. That young man's name was Aaron Hong. Upon arrival, both officers immediately began to plead with Aaron to drop the knife, but he simply refused to listen.
Oh, there he is.
Central 10-3.
Put the knife down! Knife down! Put the knife down! Put the knife down! Put it down! Put it down! Hey, back up.
He's not complying to command. Central is coming at us with a knife.
Knife down! Knife down! Knife down! Put the knife down, sir, please. Put the knife down. We can help you out, man. We can help you. Move.
With his eyes locked on the cop, Hong continued advancing towards Officer David Harrison. Both of the officers on the scene maintained a safe distance and kept stepping back slowly as they pleaded with Aaron to drop the knife and just calm down. They spoke to Aaron in a firm but non-threatening manner.
Put the knife down.
Put it down! No! No! No!
No, please.
However, he was clearly distraught and didn't fear death. One of the officers even showed empathy, saying, "Please put the knife down, we can help you, please." But Aaron responded by telling them to go ahead and do it. Judging by his own words, it seems as though he wanted someone to pull the trigger that day. He said it himself repeatedly. But no one wanted the awful task, and it's again clear these officers weren't there to harm him. They simply wanted to resolve the situation peacefully as they continued to try to persuade him to put the knife down.
Hey, less lethal. Put the knife.
But he refused, and when he had the officers backed all the way up to Macon Highway, Aaron Hong made the choice to escalate the situation. Still armed with the knife, he rushed Officer David Harrison in a full-on attack.
Down, please. No, 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 no. Down, please. No, 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 no. Shots fired, Central. Shots fired. Put the knife. Hands behind your back. Ah, no, 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 no. Get on the ground. Get on the ground. No. Get on the ground, man. Tase him. No, no, no.
Get on the ground!
Get on the ground. Shoot me. No. No. Get on the ground, man. Tase him. No, no, no. Ah.
You suck!
He's covering my gun! He's covering my gun!
Oh, God!
He grabbed my gun!
Hey, you good? You good? You good? Central, he just shot to go for another officer's gun. We've got shots fired again.
Oh, God! He grabbed my gun!
Good?
Yeah. Come here. No.
Where are you hit?
No, no, I'm not hit, man.
Alright.
I'm not hit, man.
He's done.
Take a breath.
And again, we witnessed the making of a split-second decision to self-defend. After Harrison yelled out for his aggressor to drop the knife one last time, the cop was left with no choice but to pull the trigger. He fired 7 shots before Aaron fell to the ground and dropped the knife. Now, you may think that's excessive for someone coming at you with a knife when you've got a gun, but the reality is that within seconds, Aaron Hong was back on his feet again. Leaving the knife behind, he rushed the cop one more time and got a hold of him. Officer Harrison had no time to grab his taser as a very bloody Aaron Hong tackled him from behind and began to reach for his weapon. During this attack, Officer Bidinger drew his taser gun and aimed it at Aaron. But as the situation had drastically escalated further, Bidinger had a decision to make. Let Aaron Hong grab his partner's gun and see what happens, or aim his lethal weapon and carefully pull the trigger. He had just witnessed his partner fire multiple shots into Aaron Hong, and the bullets that hit the outraged man definitely caused some damage, but surprisingly, they didn't stop him. Sadly, Officer Bidinger had to pull the trigger, further deploying lethal force to protect his partner. After Aaron was shot 4 more times, he never got up again. Luckily, Officer Harrison sustained minor injuries that were treated on the spot. Aaron Hong was pronounced dead at the scene. Both officers were put on administrative leave right after the incident. Sunday, July 16, 2023, Manchester, Connecticut police received a call regarding a domestic disturbance. As Officer Haley Willett was approaching an apartment in a North Main Street complex, she could hear someone yelling from inside the residence. The sounds were coming from a man named Joseph De Loreto and an unidentified woman. When Officer Willett entered the apartment, Joseph was already agitated, aggressive, and armed with a knife in his right hand. Haley tried to pacify the situation verbally, but Joseph just cursed her off. When she tried to grab his forearm and he resisted, Officer Willett immediately drew her taser gun. She told Joseph to calm down, otherwise she would have to tase him.
Do you want to get tased? Show me. Do you want to get tased? I'm going to tase you. Show me. Show me. Taser appointment. Come on, bitch! Put that down!
Joseph told her to shoot him right before he approached the officer. She deployed her taser, but it didn't seem to affect him at all. As a matter of fact, on the contrary, it seemed to anger him even more. After the taser failed, Officer Willette quickly created some distance between herself and Joseph by retreating out of the apartment, but he followed her outside. As she pleaded with Joseph to drop the knife and calm down, Haley had pulled out her handgun and aimed it at him. But that didn't faze him at all. Joseph just kept advancing towards the officer. As Joseph closed the distance between himself and Haley, she fired several shots.
Shots fired! Multiple shots fired! Shots fired, we have shots fired on North Main Street. All units on ship, 1042 North Main. I got the knife.
As one of the bullets penetrated his left thigh, he fell to the ground. Finally, she was able to take the knife out of his hand and handcuff him. Joseph was taken to the hospital and later arrested. He was lucky to survive, but he was charged with second-degree threatening, first-degree criminal attempt to commit assault, and assault of public safety personnel. Officer Haley Willette was put on administrative leave. On April 24th of 2023, patrolling officer Christopher Hamill responded to a 911 call from a Woodland Avenue home on the Lawrence Harbor section of Old Bridge, New Jersey. According to Luis Mendez, his son, 26-year-old Luke Mendez, lived in the apartment with his mother, grandmother, and aunt. Turns out police visits were a frequent recurrence in this household. On that day, Officer Hamill was responding to a domestic disturbance between Luke and one of the female residents over the placement of a surveillance camera in the apartment.
What's going on?
She's invading our privacy, and we found the camera, hiding cameras all around the house.
Who is?
She is.
She is?
Yeah. And he doesn't like the idea that he found the camera in the kitchen.
Gotcha.
And
Gotcha.
so now she's up and down trying to threaten him with the cops.
Gotcha.
I don't know if that's legal that she can do that.
It is legal. It's her house.
No, it's not.
Whose house is it?
Mine and his.
You was in his?
No, I'm crazy around.
No,
Okay, well,
No, you're no baby, man.
it's our house.
No.
okay.
She
So
lives with us.
everybody lives together.
Okay.
So,
Right.
you know, if you want to have a camera, she wants to have a camera, she legally lives here, right? Am I wrong with that? She legally does live here.
Yeah.
So if she wants to put a camera up just as much as you can, she can. I can't tell her that she can't. I can't tell her. She should tell you, absolutely. Common courtesy should occur.
When Officer Hamill arrived, he was greeted by 3 women in the living room. Luke was upstairs in his room at this time. After a quick discussion in the living room, Hamill went to talk with Luke himself in order to broker some peace between the parties involved in the disturbance. As the officer reached the stairs that led to Luke's room, Luke appeared at the top of them, gripping a long-bladed knife.
Luke!
Hello?
Hey, how you doing, Officer Hamill?
How you doing?
What's going on, buddy? Can I just talk to you for a minute?
Yeah, what's up?
I just talked to you.
How you doing?
Can I come up and talk to you? That way we have privacy?
Say that.
Why do you have a knife in your hand?
Because I don't want
All right.
to come close.
All right, well, you got to put the knife down.
I prefer not.
All right, well, you got to put the knife down now. Relax, 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 and put the knife down. Headquarters, one a gunpoint, knife in the hand. Put the knife down on the floor and get on the ground. Put the knife down on the ground. Put the gun down, put the knife down now. Put it down.
Officer Hamill reached for his firearm and aimed it at Luke while trying to de-escalate the situation verbally. He tried pleading with Luke, telling him that no one was at fault in this situation and it wasn't too late to fix it. The cop wanted Luke to relax and talk things through in order to reach peaceful resolution, but no matter how many times he was asked, the young man refused to drop the knife. Just like in the other cases we've talked about, you can clearly see this officer didn't want to hurt anyone. He simply wanted to resolve the issue he was faced with.
Come on, buddy, talk to me. There's other ways around this. You're upset at them in a living arrangement. I've spoke to you before. I know you're a nice person. Spoke to you before, too. You're a nice person. Talk to me, buddy.
21, I'm working that way.
Come on, talk to me.
Come on, bud.
You didn't do anything wrong. You're not in any trouble right now.
21's around.
All right? You're not in any trouble right now. Tell your to put the knife down. Stay right there.
She's leaving, Luke.
She can leave, and we can leave too.
We
can all leave together.
Luke, she's leaving for good, Luke.
We can all
leave together.
This
is all workable still. Still all workable. We're still all workable. Come on, Luke.
Talk to me.
We're good. We're still good. We're still good, Luke. Talk to me.
Come on.
Please, she's leaving.
Get everybody out of the house. Go on. Luke, talk to me. Come on, we're still good. We're still good. You want privacy, you're entitled to it, Luke. Come on, buddy, talk to me. Take a deep breath. Take a deep breath. That's good, take a deep breath. We're good. We're still good, Luke. You're entitled to your privacy, and I want to give that to you. I want to help you. Come on, buddy. Talk to me. Come on, talk to me. Why you're upset about the camera, right? She's not allowed to have the camera. Luke.
51284, shot fired.
Drop it. Roll to your stomach. Roll to your stomach. Roll to your stomach. Roll to your stomach.
Stomach, Luke!
41, you hear that? Shot fired.
I can't get his hand. I can't get his hand.
All right,
I got the knife. I got the knife.
Bring it out here.
21, you've received that?
Sadly, de-escalation tactics proved fruitless. A woman can be heard in the background saying, "Luke, she's leaving for good." But this seemed to heighten his agitation even further. He began to ask the officer to leave the house several times. But of course, Hamill couldn't do that until he had diffused the situation. Then suddenly, out of nowhere, Luke rushed down the stairs, still armed with the knife, yelling out, "Move." The cop had to defensively react to the best of his ability. With Luke only 3 steps away from him, Hamill opened fire, pulling the trigger 3 times. After the shots rang out, Luke fell to the bottom of the stairs, crawled up, and still refused to let go of the knife. But the officer managed to pull it out of his hands. A short time after the incident, Luke Mendez was taken to a local hospital, where at 4:47 p.m., he was pronounced dead. And yet again, the same question arises. Who was at fault? The officer or Luke? Was Luke even trying to hurt the officer or the lady with whom he had the argument? Who knows? One thing we do know is that on that day, there were no winners. Another person had been lost to the judgment of a clouded mind. An investigation was opened to decide if the officer's actions were lawful. In all fairness, police training should include a bigger emphasis on mental health issues and how to act accordingly in such situations. It would be great to use more pacifying methods of de-escalation to resolve tensions. But unfortunately, we don't have net guns to shoot at people like they do in Spider-Man and Batman. And sometimes even those who are well educated on mental health issues are left powerless when faced with psychotic breaks, mind states of excited delirium, or substance-induced psychosis. Obviously, these cases are tragic for everyone involved on both sides of the line. In Sage Crawford's case, her little girls, who had already been subjected to major trauma by losing their father, were forced to witness a devastating situation, which I have no doubt has left scars that will never fully heal. Aaron Hong's family and friends will never have the answers they seek, and Luke's grandmother took the incident so bad that she herself had to be hospitalized. Thank God they treated her accordingly and she returned home safe. But none of these people will ever get over the loss of a loved one. In all of these cases, in my opinion, the police officers found themselves in immediate danger. They had to risk their own safety to protect themselves and others. That is what's expected of them. It's their duty on a daily basis. But in doing so, they too are faced with moral dilemmas and consequences for their own actions, as well as actions of those whom they are faced with on any given day. I don't believe these cases display police brutality. And that's not to say that brutality doesn't exist. It does, and someone in law enforcement can most certainly dish out unjust brutality, just as a teacher, preacher, and man or woman of any skin color can. But the cops we saw in the footage featured in this video were not brutal. They were simply stuck between a rock and a hard place, forced to make a decision no one wanted to make. It's easy to get caught up in our feelings when we see someone gunned down, but while tragic, that doesn't always mean it's brutality or cold-blooded murder. When we cry brutality, and it doesn't fit the scenario, we're effectively crying wolf when there isn't one. And when we do that, we minimize real brutality when it happens. You may argue, why can't they just shoot them in the leg? Well, the simple answer is, life is not a 90s Mel Gibson movie. Aggressors tend to close the safe distance between you and them pretty quickly. There are only a few seconds between your life or theirs. Effectively aiming at a leg or an arm isn't as easy as you think. And like tasers, it doesn't always do the job. In 2015, Reverend Jarrett Maupin led civil rights protests shoulder to shoulder with Black Lives Matter in Arizona after authorities gunned down a man in Phoenix. He was very outspoken against police until they invited him to come along and take their use of training course where he would be put in real-life scenarios and would have to decide whether or not to fire his weapon.
We want his badge, we want his gun, we want his job.
Today, he accepted an invitation to look at things from the other side. 3 scenarios where you have to decide to shoot or not shoot.
Give your hand your gun.
What kind of car do you drive?
This is my car, man.
Moppin, the officer, is shot.
What's going on today, gentlemen?
What do you want?
What's happening here?
What's wrong with
Back
you?
up.
Huh? Tell me why you shot.
Well, I've shot because he was within that zone. You know, I felt there was an imminent threat. I didn't necessarily see him armed, but he came clearly to do some harm to the officer, to my person.
What are you doing?
Because I don't know what you have under there.
Everybody, look at this guy. What are you doing?
No shots fired, but the suspect did have a hidden knife in his waistband.
It's hard to make that call. It shakes you up.
I went through the scenarios too, without seeing what Moppin did.
Now I need to talk to you. Come on out over here. Both of you, get on the ground.
What do you want?
Get on the ground.
For what?
Get back.
What
Get back.
I didn't understand how important compliance was, but after going through this, yeah, my attitude has changed. This is all unfolding in 10 to 15 seconds. People need to comply with the orders of law enforcement officers for their own sake.
As you can see, both Jarrett Maupin and the Fox 10 reporter who participated in the training exercise both learned valuable lessons about what law enforcement officers face on a day-to-day basis. We can push for mental health awareness, and we can have civil conversations about police reform, but ultimately, self-defense is self-defense. If you ever find yourself in this situation, and when you charge at anyone with a weapon, they have the right to defend themselves, and that might cost you your life. This is not brutality. It's just the brutal, unfortunate, and disturbing truth. There are no winners on days like these.